Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It's the end of the year actually now, so I figured I made a special update and final report video because I do collect lots of articles that I want to report on, but since I collect so many, they get eventually, I guess you can't call news old if someone haven't heard them before, because I tend to be attracted to news that are less popular. But I figured I always gonna need to empty that entire list, because eventually I count each time and then make a random number out of all of those, and if I'm over 100 videos and it keeps stacking up, it's gonna get annoying to count like, oh, I got 120 videos, I got 140 videos, so I need to just cut loose. And I think this is a great way of showing for you people who follows me that
cancer medicines in Europe. The company is Aspen Pharmaceuticals. And according to leaked documents, employees plotted to stop supplying drugs and at one point threatened to destroy drug stocks unless health authorities agreed to price hikes. There's a lot to this story, and here to help me break it all down is boom bust extraordinaire Manuel Rapalo. This is a really disturbing story for a lot of people. It's devastating. Let's start with the company, Aspen Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, it feels like we're talking about pharmaceutical companies a lot
lately,
right?
There's never a lack of drama
there's never a lack of material to work with. I'll give you a little bit of background about Aspen. Aspen Pharmaceuticals is a South African firm. Their European headquarters are based in Dublin. To no shock.
Oh,
a lot
nice.
of
Business
pharmaceutical
taxes there.
I think they hate corporate taxes in
Yeah.
Ireland. But the Aspen firm is originally out of South Africa. In 2013, Aspen Pharmaceuticals purchased 5 different cancer treatment medicines from another well-known pharmaceutical company, GlaxoSmithKline, and they reportedly hiked the price of these medicines by 4,000%. So just an example.
4,000%.
Yeah, that's a big
Wow,
number.
that's
So let me
delightful.
give you an example of one of the drugs. It's called Busulfan. Busulfan is a chemotherapy drug used to treat leukemia. The price went from £5 in England and Wales to £65 in 2013. So this is a story that we're learning this week from journalists in the UK with The Independent, who are citing emails that were leaked.
These things are what I wanted to talk about, and I'm gonna make sure that you can see the thing scrolling through the entirety of the video. So I'm gonna try to make this video about 1 hour so that you can actually manage to read some of the articles. And of course, I think the articles will scroll too fast for most people to read. So basically, this is YouTube. So just remember and hit pause and sit and read if you really want to read them. Otherwise, maybe you're one of those that just reads headlines, or perhaps you're just interested in certain particular articles. So it's up to you how much of these articles you want to study. But it can also be interesting for you to see what articles have caught my eye. So I thought, let's just take it easy this video and talk about stuff. And I want to really to talk about, first and foremost, about how I strategize with my videos. But as you see here, I'm sadly alone as usual, but I mean, I could try and invite some Muslims, but of course, since I have ham here and, you know, they call it haram, so whatever, you know, it suit themselves if they don't want some delicious food. So now we scared away the liberals, so now we can talk. But anyways, I must say I'm pretty happy about my progress, because how I eventually ended up talking about this new stuff, that I would say is a big thanks to Donald Trump, even though I was starting before that. I remember on my Swedish channel I made some political statements like how important nationalism is. I think that's one reason why people are feeling depressed, people are feeling hopeless, and there are strange things going on. You know, I was still afraid of being politically correct, because I remember when I very first started with making videos. That was many years ago. I deleted most of my old videos because, well, I felt like, oh, they're so bad, no one wants to watch them, so I deleted them. And I think that's a very stupid move. For any YouTube creator or creator for that matter, always keep your old stuff. Always keep your old stuff somewhere, because eventually you're gonna want to rewatch your old stuff and see how much you have progressed, whether it is in technical quality or just how you perceive and talk or just what you used to do in the old days. I think that's a very good track record to have. Even though if it's gonna be bad, even though you're gonna say crazy things, and you're gonna see, oh, for example, if you're gonna be an total cultural Marxist one day, like in the old days, I used to think about having a socialist structure, right? Because, well, I was also fooled by this equality and stuff like that. Even though people told me, oh, you know, Stalin, he was a bad guy, you know? And I was like, yeah, well, the socialist leaders always bad. But I wanted to mix in from every ideologue, you know, like many youthful people does nowadays. You know, they are trying to be utopian seeking, right? Trying to think of the perfect ideology. But no matter how hard I tried, I came to the same conclusion every time. No matter what you do, it's gonna fail. An ideologue may sustain itself as long as you have a good leader that would enforce these things, right? If it's a good ideology. Because everyone strives to be good, right? And if he dies and his son comes to power, it doesn't necessarily mean that the son is gonna be as good as the father. That is a very scary thing with fictional characters like Superman. And if he's gonna have children, maybe the children won't be as good as him. Maybe they would sympathize more with Lex Luthor than Superman, and ultimately create a world technocracy, or, you know, world government as Lex Luthor would want. And that's just not really sustaining, is it? And if we look at history, like Nero or King Henry's child that killed his brother, etc. You know, all the crazy things these princes and emperors, kings, and blah 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 have done for the bloodline, monarchies, and etc. And not just that, in power in general, for simple positions, marriages. I mean, people kill their own families, god damn it, to gain power. And these, sadly, these power-hungry freaks, you think, oh, well, that was past in the medieval days, right? No, they still exist today. I mean, I've been listening to this Roger Stone book, an audiobook, very nice thing to do, because I don't like to read, actually. I don't have the focus for it, really. But I do tend to read articles, but books, not really my thing. However, I do read currently this book when I ride trains and stuff, Making of the President 2016. I think this is gonna be a very interesting book for the future, when historians gonna, you know, talk about this historic moment that happened in 2016 as Donald Trump won the election. But anyways, in this Clinton's War on Women, the book is called, that I'm listening to, there's so much interesting stuff in it. And of course, the most heartbreaking thing to hear was about the women being persecuted by the Clintons and having their homes ransacked, and you know, it's like really mobsters tactic style things, right? Because they had sexual relations with Clinton, because, well, he apparently was quite a bubba. I love that expression. But no, he really was a womanizer to a extreme extent, and he had sex with hundreds of women. And the examples of women and the testimonies, they're just pouring into this book like crazy, and you're just like, wow, when will this ever end? Anyways, So what happens in the book is that the Clintons actually considered the divorce, but they stayed together because of political reasons, etc., etc. And there was some guy that was shot in a parking lot. I think they had an entire chapter of him. I don't remember what he was called, but he was rumored to have a relationship with Hillary Clinton, etc. And well, obviously, that doesn't bode well for the Clintons. So I guess he was assassinated like many, many others. And the strange autopsy report of those two kids that was in the train yard at the wrong place at the wrong time, it was said that they had taken an overdose of smoking marijuana, but that doesn't happen from what I understand. And well, it turns out they had stab wounds, etc. And the one who did the autopsy was not even qualified to do the autopsy. But he was paid, and well, obviously the whole situation was crooked. I highly suggest you listening to the book for the proper details, but it's just amazing. And well, obviously, I was talking about monarchy, and you see these people, they're not really together for love reason. I very much doubt that, especially as Hillary Clinton abused her husband. So yeah, I mean, sometimes I worry, like, was Bill Clinton the more evil, sinister dude, or was this Hillary Clinton the more, I don't know, satanic witch? Because the more I hear about the Clintons, the more afraid I get of Hillary Clinton rather than this Bill Clinton. And every day that has passed since the inauguration, or well, the elections of 2016 America, I thank God that Hillary Clinton did not win the election. Because if she won the election, well, then we'd have a rapist back into the White House and a total globalist puppet. But it's so funny. You remember the video I talked about self-projecting themselves into others? Hillary Rodham Clinton is a perfect example of that. I mean, she says Trump has Russian collusion, yet she takes money from the Russians. Trump has foreign aid, yet she gets funded by the Saudi Arabians and other special interests. And he'd be the puppet, even though she's getting the money from all the special interests and refuses to put a penny in there herself, etc. And she doesn't believe in cutting taxes on the rich because she doesn't believe that would create work, and blah 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 blah. She wants to increase tax for everyone, basically. And she even said that in some particular moment. But that's not what I actually wanted to talk about today. But that's the truth. Hillary Clinton is a crazy person that would push the globalist agenda through and cross war. I mean, someone that would actually go out and say that if I'm president, then Iran better be ready for war or something like that, then I will... She took a really hard stance and said basically that she would declare war against Iran if she would be chosen president, which would escalate to war with Russia. And as you've seen, we've talked about a lot of things during just 1 year period. And also I have my Swedish channel where I dare talk about things. And that's really where I started to dare break from this political correctness from all those years ago and start to progress, and eventually I totally shattered it as terrorist attacks happened, and I got really pissed one day, sat in front of the camera and cursed a whole lot because, well, eventually, you know, you get triggered, as people like to say. I was a snowflake melting. But I just couldn't keep my face straight, and I was just really pissed off. Even though I was angry, I was making lots of good points, but still, you know, sensitive crowd and people that's like, oh, I want to listen to a perfect political correct person speaking, oh, obviously people like that will be afraid. But I thought it felt really nice for me, actually. It was a personal enlightening, I must say, that I got that mad and just spoke. I'm not very proud of the language I used, of course. I'm a Christian man and everything, but I do feel proud of the fact that I learned to break away from being politically correct. Now I really don't care if someone's gonna say, oh, you're gonna be hateful towards Muslim. I'm gonna be, yeah, maybe I am. Maybe I have a good reason to be so. Maybe I have a good reason to despise a religion that calls on for other people's deaths, including mine and including the entirety of the culture of the Western world. I think that's a very good thing, to actually despise, hate, or be afraid of Islam, or whatever you wish to call it, because there are really heavy grounds to it. And from that point, I've just moved on, and eventually I started to research a lot. I listened to lots of Alex Jones, and from all of these things, and Mark Dice. I think what really started all this, listening to Trump and starting to listen to more different ideas, because I felt like listening to the Republicans speak. Well, first, actually, I listened to the presidential debates, now that I remember, when Donald Trump was debating Hillary Clinton, because they were like, for months and months that, Trump, he's a racist, he's gonna destroy the environment. And you're like, wow, he's a crazy person, right? But there's so much aggressiveness towards him. And the only one that can keep neutral about, if not positive, was Hillary Clinton. So I figured I want to listen to these people talk themselves. So that's what I did. And I'm a rational person. I do listen to people, and obviously I have always been conservative in this form of having this sense of nationalism is important, right? Even though I have been influenced by socialism. But I have listened to lots of different people, and whenever you listen to these people that does have common sense and makes sense, right? You do understand their message, and their message becomes obviously far more stronger. And well, actually, I have not used my television since like 11 years ago, because I noticed gay propaganda and stuff like that all the time, and racial ones. I mean, you remember perhaps games where kids, say, all right, we're gonna spin a bottle or something, and whoever it's gonna be pointed at, he's gonna do something strange, or kiss or something like that. And then they're gonna do commercials when there's gonna be this little white boy, and then there's gonna be this huge black girl, and they're gonna be forced to kiss or something like that. And you're gonna be like, is this really appropriate? And then you're gonna have like 3 commercials in a row with homosexuals, like, oh no, you can't have straight couples, you can't have a normal white couple anymore, or in any Swedish movie they're gonna produce. It's just like America. I've always seen like America, everyone is copying from America. So all of this globalist talk, etc.
I started being an artist in high school. I was the kid that got in trouble for drawing on anything that didn't have something on it.
As a young man, Michael Regan served in the Vietnam War. In between combat missions, he found himself drawing portraits of his buddies on just about anything he could find.
When I went to Vietnam, I figured there was a lot of loose money laying around, so I started drawing portraits on C-ration boxes of guys' girlfriends or of themselves, and they'd send them home. Sadly, some of the drawings were the only things that did come home.
For Michael and many other soldiers, coming back home from Vietnam came with a price.
I realized that what I was going to need to do was pay somebody back. There was 700 people a week dying when I was in Vietnam, and I really did believe that I had a debt to pay. But as I started drawing more and more portraits, and as it became more and more popular, I started realizing this is going to be a way that maybe I can pay some of that debt.
Back in his hometown of Seattle, Michael Regan became quite an accomplished artist, drawing 6 different presidents, hundreds of actors, and celebrities of every kind.
You know, I love drawing, so it's not like I was doing something that was going to be taking a lot of my time I didn't like away. And we raised almost $10 million with some of those redrawn portraits for charity.
The large donation caught the eye of a local TV station, who did a feature on Michael, which then made its way around the country.
A week later, I heard from a woman, her name is Charisse Johnson, lived in Boise, Idaho, and she said, "How much would it cost me for you to do a portrait of my husband, Michael?" And then she said he died last year in the war. And I said to her, I can't possibly charge you, just send me the picture.
Little did he know, Michael's life was about to change forever.
She called me about a day after she should have received her portrait, and this is what she said. "Last night was the first night I've slept all night in a year." I turned to my wife and I told her what happened, and I said, "Now we need to do them all." And she said, "How are we going to do that?" And I said, "I have no idea."
6 years and 2,200 portraits later, Michael's drawings are providing closure for the families left behind.
Well, Eric was a really interesting kid. I remember when he was 4 years old, we had this little trampoline set up in the backyard, and he was on that trampoline jumping up and down, waving an American flag, singing "You're a Grand Old Flag," and you know, that's just not usual for a 4-year-old kid. You know, when he told me that he wanted to go to the Marines and go to Iraq because that's where he could make a difference, it didn't surprise me. I think that's just the type of kid that he was.
A former West Point graduate, Eric Herzberg knew the risks his oldest son Eric was taking by going to Iraq.
On the one hand, you know, I was just so proud of him.
That has come through time, has just really given names to things that I have seen from beforehand. And I think that's very a good feeling to know, there's others that has common sense. And when you listen to Donald Trump, you were like, I was like, oh, this guy, he's actually not wrong in the things that he says. I actually do agree with him. And I do notice he speaks in a very simple language, like even I can use more sophisticated words, I felt. But perhaps when he talks about a little bit more business, he was a bit more fluent than me, because me and money, doesn't really go together that well. But when I started to listen to Republicans, I felt quite at home, because this was people against abortion and stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah, abortion is murder, and these people are making so much sense. And here in Sweden, you're gonna listen to a politician speak like it's the right of the woman, and when you listen to Hillary Clinton, you're like, damn you're one of those that are in my country that's destroying the country. You know, I've been awake to this destruction of Sweden for quite some time, you know, most of my childhood. I mean, it doesn't take long to figure out that something's wrong when you're gonna see people with these foreign faces, which are always predicted in these old books, right? That, oh, these people live in the Middle Eastern areas. And then and of course, I didn't care really about race or anything. And I was angry about racist stuff and like that, because I don't think that you should attack people because they have a different ethnicity. However, I do believe that they should live in their native home countries. I believe in nation states, racist states, no, ethnic states. Because what we're committing is ethnocide, which is a very good term, rather than white genocide. But it's happening. They're trying to really remove the cultures that existed before. And she just represented everything what these crazy bastards are trying to do here. So I was like, this Trump gotta win. Because if he doesn't win, they're gonna have it just as bad in Sweden as bad in America as we have in Sweden. And I would hate to see that, because as I've studied more and more about America, of course, this colonization thing, I was never for colonization, because basically what happens in Europe now is that the Middle East and Africa is colonizing the Western world. And you don't want that. You don't want that. And the more you study American history, the more you get respect for it. It has a very stable ground, I think. Of course, there's not everything you're gonna agree with it. I mean, I'm not one of those that's gonna sit there and be, yes, I agree to everything you say. Yes. No, I don't. I think, really, there's no one I have 100% agreement, even though I'm gonna watch Alex Jones perhaps a lot, because he's one of my favorite people to listen to, but we're gonna keep him as an example, because, well, of course, he's really doing, I think he's really the juggernaut on the field against globalism, so that's why I want to highlight him so much. And I hate that he doesn't actually see the value of ethnicities. Maybe he does, but the way he speaks of it is that, well, ethnicities, it doesn't matter if you're blood, black, blah, 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 your skin color, we all have their same red blood. But that's not exactly true. We don't have the same red blood. And the ethnicities are so important to preserve because they have grown and evolved through thousands and thousands of years. And to say that ethnicity doesn't matter, I think that's a horrible crime against nature and God, for that matter, himself. Because from what I remember in Adam and Eve, God was angry when they started to cover up their body parts with leaves and stuff, when they have eaten the apples, and that they started to learn things of knowledge, right? And then what is knowledge in our world? Technology. I mean, this is not made by someone that found it growing from the ground, that picked it up, like picking a tree from an apple tree. And all of these things, they're materialistic, they're created through technology. And I think he wanted us to be natural, close to each other in some form of way. But we have really gone away from that and gone to a more soulless society. That's what technocracy is. And globalism promotes the idea that race doesn't matter, that everyone should be mixed into one race. That's what globalism wants, because that will be far easier to control, and I've spoken about it so many times you don't need to hear it again. But still, you get the point, right? So this is really infuriating me. But he still understands the value of nation states. But he seems still to see it as a multi-ethnic states. I mean, everyone can see it their way, but there you go. If there's one thing I heavily disagree with Alex Jones, it's that. But like he says, he's common sense, and I also like common sense. I'm pretty common sense as well, right? Or am I? Well, anyway, he has a great common sense, and I tend to agree with his common sense a whole damn lot. Sometimes he comes with this information you don't really know about these people, and I'm really this guy that wants to go with facts, right? I don't want to speak about something I'm completely unaware of and be like, well, I don't know if this guy did this or that, because I can't speak for someone else. I can't. But of course, I'm not afraid to call someone out if they have done something that's suspicious. And well, of course, I'm not going to say, oh, that person is guilty of this or not. But what I can do is try to enlighten you or inform you that this guy is accused of doing this. Perhaps this is a guy you should look out for, like Bill Clinton on all of his rape victims, etc. That these people are perhaps people you should not want to vote for presidency, etc. And all of these other things that's being unheard of. Because I do dare to speak of stuff that people don't want to talk about. And that's basically what interests my nose, that don't talk about racial ethnicities, like the environmental party dudes told me. Of course, then I'm gonna talk about that a whole lot. And if they're gonna say, don't talk about religion, well, then I'm gonna talk a whole lot about religion and why it's important. And so on and so on. And if you're gonna see like the media portraying something completely wrong here in Sweden and saying, oh, there's no problem with the immigrants, then I'm gonna go and counter that and show the other side, which actually reveals the true facts. I live in Sweden. I know how despicable Sweden it has become. I mean, there's lots of great Swedish people. Don't misunderstand me. I mean, there's lots of voices that doesn't get promoted by the media or the alternative media for that matter. I mean, for example, I know people that has, for example, adopted a child and take it in as their own when the social services here in Sweden took him from his family, and his mother was, a stupid bitch that got together with an Arab or something like that. I don't know, maybe he was a nigger. Anyways, migrant, and he choked the boy. Chokehold him. That's not really healthy for children, right? So the social services took him from the family. That's one good instance of the social services, rather taking it from a complete normal conservative Christian family. But anyways, they couldn't handle him because he was totally angry. He was trying to attack people. No one could keep him calm. So they contacted this woman and said like, hey, you want to take care of this kid? And she was like, what? But she eventually accepted, and, well, she managed to calm the boy down and give him the love and care that a family should, and really showed what family values does compared to statehood manufacturing of children. Like, their last tools that, well, if he's not calm, then he should have medicine, etc. And if that doesn't work, well, obviously their technocratic methods doesn't work. So what the hell do? Kill him? No, they can't do that. And so they just had to find a different alternative. And, well, they managed to brush this off themselves. And, of course, no reporters is gonna report on this, how the state failed in this case. And the conservative family managed to succeed with this. And this boy has now a future, rather than he would grow up hateful and wanted to commit crimes and just drink and just throw his life away. But now he's gonna have a future, and that's very beautiful thing to see. But no one talks about these people. I have done nice things too. I know lots of other nice acts, but I figured this one will do for now. And these voices aren't being heard, not at all. But hopefully, with the optimism that there are more and more people wanting to reject Islam and people from the Middle Eastern areas as immigrants. Of course, the media doesn't want to portray this, statistics, etc., and all of these other facts. So they go with their moral relativism to save their own asses, because they know if people are gonna figure out the truth, then we're in a heck a lot of trouble, right? And people are gonna get prosecuted because what they have done is criminal, like real criminal stuff, to destroy our countries this way and control. So they have to double down on their bullshit and just completely go crazy and ultra-liberal, or whatever you're supposed to call it. I don't want to call it even liberalism, because that is really denouncing America's heritage, because America was founded on liberalism, classic Renaissance liberalism, whatever you wish to call it. It's just despicable. That's not liberals, that's socialists. That's what they are. They're not liberals at all. They're not progressive. They're regressives. And the only way for them to have a monopoly, or, well, actually have validity, is to have a world system where everyone would have the same thoughts, have the same culture, have the same race, this culture and religion of the party, just like in North Korea. That's how they want to create a world government, on complete austerity and poverty and despair and propaganda that would just make people hateful and sad at the government's desire. They would control what people think. And, well, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are helping with these things a lot. And I managed to actually see that as they have updated things on YouTube, I know I don't get a lot of views normally. I mean, I get a heck of low video views. But I do notice that even my low views have, dropped tremendously as time have went on. And, it's very disappointing for me, of course, as a YouTube creator to create videos and they're gonna have a few views and few likes. However, I must thank you because I do believe there are people watching my videos because obviously I have some loyal supporters or followers. So I want to heavily thank you for have been following me all this time. And of course, I'm not gonna stop because someone is gonna tell me, oh, you're gonna be silent or you're gonna die or if it's gonna feel hard or something like that. Of course, my life has been hell of hard. I mean, my life is a complete torture for me, to be honest. And I just really feel like what I'm doing here, it's a good thing. I mean, even though I don't reach out lots of people, there's a few intelligent individuals that does follow me, and I feel very honored, in fact, to share my knowledge and my findings with you. And hopefully, maybe, who knows, maybe someday in the future more people will find these videos and take part of this knowledge. So what I truly, really want to do is to give knowledge to people, because I really do believe that if people would have the knowledge and understanding of things, they would make the right decisions. I do believe that people generally have the good common sense and would understand these things. And well, of course, there's stupid people. That doesn't mean they have a low intelligence. It's just that they're idiots. They don't want to use their God-given intellect that they're born with. I mean, there's lots of intellectual people in the world, but they're so stupid and doesn't want to use that. They don't want to use that for intellectual purposes or just being smart about things. No, they rather be stupid and drink some drink and, be hallelujah, whatever, I don't give a shit, rather than actually think a moment. What will happen in the future? Well, I don't care, I die in 50 years. It's just self-centered, selfish people nowadays. But I do believe that these articles and things like this, normal people are gonna be like, no, that's not true because it sounds so strange. It just can't be true, right? But the strangest thing is actually that fiction is not even close to reality. Reality is more crazier than fiction. And that's the insane part. And I do believe that with the proper knowledge and hopefully if I can be a helping guiding hand, I feel that's a very worthy cause. So that's why I try to be so explanatory as I make my videos, and maybe sometimes it's gonna be a bit too repetitive. I think that's perhaps how some people would feel watching my videos, as I tend to go on long rants like I do now, and maybe I sometimes will repeat myself far too many times. Though I've watched lots of celebrities do these things as well. I mean, you watch, or for that matter, in the mainstream media, how they talk about the same news story over and over again, how Trump colluded with the Russians. I mean, and people still watching that. So I don't think I repetitive myself in the exact same manner, because I tend to try and show different viewpoints, explain it in different ways, show different images, videos, or whatever. I try to show it in as many ways as possible. However, yeah, the timing of the videos, I think that's also something that scares people away, because if they're gonna see a video in 1 hour and they don't know who it is, they're gonna be like, nah, I don't think I want to watch this. I've actually planned on making shorter videos for the future. It's just that for now it's far easier for me to just go and just sit in front of the mic, read an article and talk about it, rather than making a scripted thing. Because actually the truth is, if I make a scripted video in 5 minutes, that's gonna take far longer to make than me just talking for 1 hour. That's how crazy it is, because you have to script, you have to, make sure it's gonna be well done, and then you're gonna check your spellings, and well, maybe the spellings isn't that important actually, as you're just gonna read it, but still, then you have to record it, and you have to transfer it and edit all of that, rather than just to make one track, edit that track, and hopefully you're done. And of course, if you're gonna add videos and images like I have done in texts, it's gonna take far longer times. But that's the thing, I'm trying to actually make time for before the 20th January, when I think it was 20th or 21st January, when Trump was inaugurated on his anniversary. I wanted to be able to make a video in time for that, a little bit of a larger project, and so I really don't have much time, and this is not my work, and obviously I'd be bankrupt if this was my profession, because, well, obviously, as you see, I don't get a lot of views, so that wouldn't work. So I have a work in real life, I go out and work, and that takes also a lot of time, and sometimes you're just way too tired to do anything at all. So I really need to spend time on that. So if my videos are gonna be a bit more simplistic, I know this one is gonna take some time, because I have to record all the articles, etc., and put that together. But the videos coming after this will most likely be videos of some kinds, and me commenting on it a little bit, or perhaps like I did with the North Korean, like I will sit and react and stuff like that, because I have some bigger projects in mind that I want to just get done. I want to get those big projects done, and who knows, maybe I will figure out some bigger projects. I mean, I want to write a damn book at some point, but that's something I really don't want to push, right? But it would really feel nice to get these bigger projects out of the way. For example, in my Swedish channel, I made a documentary for like 8 months. And before that, I was making a bigger video I wanted to get done before this, in Trump's 1 year review I'm gonna try to make. I was actually making a book that I read through, like an audiobook reading or book reading, because I felt, this would be a pretty cool thing, because I don't think it's any copyright on that book. That's the reason, and I think it would be very educational for people. So, and that's gonna be in English, by the way, so that's gonna be a bonus for you if you like intellectual studies. But anyways, it will feel good for me personally to feel like, whew, these big stuff, they're over. Now I can focus and pay more attention to my smaller videos, and at the same time start and plan my book. Because believe me, I could probably always figure out some big projects I want to do, but there's a few projects I really want to do. And as you can probably imagine, just if these projects are having some very big importance to you, like, yes, I feel like this would be a very, very well-made project, right? Like, creator, like, let's say it's artistic integrity, right? I like to make things properly done. And when I make these videos each and every single week, I don't feel like I get satisfied. So that's why I want to make these bigger projects, right? But at the same time, I'm gonna feel like, oh no, I've sacrificed time for my smaller videos because I have to stress to make these bigger ones. So blah blah blah. It's lots of chaos and unbalance, and I would feel a lot more balance, like a balance to the force. But so that's why I really would like to get those projects done. And there's one for my Swedish channel that I would really like to make in the future, and something I really should make in the English for that matter in the future, and it will be about suicide and stuff like that. And if you know anyone that's suicidal or anything like that, you know, message me or whatever, and I'm gonna try and, well, either make a video or give you a response, because I have lots of knowledge of this subject, and I do believe that what I have to say could actually help people. You know, of course, I don't speak for everyone that's suicidal or something like that, but I do believe the knowledge I have could help people and make people understand that not everyone are thinking like everyone else, and there's someone out there that perhaps could connect a little bit better with me, and I would really like to share my knowledge of this and help people, but I don't want to rush something like this out, as you probably understand with just a video like this. Maybe I could make some quick comments on this, on a video as a comment on a report, like, oh, I read a report about suicide rates or something like that. Yeah, maybe I would spit out some facts that I have and knowledge and experiences, etc., that I would believe would be appropriate for that video, because even though I tend to talk about all sorts of things, go on rants as I make videos, I really want to make it structured. I really want to have strategy. I want to have examples of real life examples, and give some conclusion to it all, and hopefully give some closure to these people seeking desperately for help. But of course, if someone are that desperate or know someone that is that desperate, I would not hesitate for 1 second to help that person. As you see, I make these videos and there's barely anyone that watches them, right? So that feels pretty bad for me. So if I see that someone's gonna be asking me, I'm probably gonna have time for that person and reply to that one. At least for now. I haven't gotten a celebrity status yet. But of course, because that's the sad truth, that when people get into this celebrity status, there's so many messages pouring in that there's no way someone could answer that many. Like, they're gonna get 1,000 messages a minute or something like that, very famous people. And how the world could someone answer all of that? Like, even if you answered like 10 fan emails a day, and that would just be, that would be an enormous time amount, right? So that would just be like 3,000 people, and imagine if there's over thousands every minute sending messages to you. That's like 3 minutes of messages you answer for a whole year then, and that's not really gonna work. But as you probably understand, just try to make your voice heard, write messages in the comments, and by the way, it helps motivate me that if you show engagement, if you say like, oh, nice video, or I thought this was very strange, could you perhaps explain this for me in some other video, or I found an article about chemical warfare on RT, please search on RT's website, like chemical warfare on youth, or whatever the article's name is, and I would look it up and maybe I would make a report on it. I think that would be an awesome thing if people would interact and say, I mean, I do speak, I think I have gotten 2 requests from Swedish people, as I try also to do activism. I do a lot of things, right? As you see, I really don't have time for anything nowadays. luckily I spend most of the time doing this and work, and of course I prioritize work because that's of course something I get actually paid to do, and I feel very obliged to do my duty when I'm called out for duty. And of course this is very important for me, so I try to give this a lot of attention. And of course I want to build a family, but that doesn't seem to be working out very well. Now this got very depressing very fast. Anyways, oh, I forgot, it's Christmas. I could light some, yeah. I actually prefer matches, but now with modern technology you got this stuff, and since I got one of these, well, why not use it? Anyways, looks nice. I don't normally lit lights, so let's hope it's not gonna be too distracting for the camera. Oh, the camera lens. Well, that's fine, I think. But anyways, it really hopes motivate me to see that people are engaged, people are liking the videos or disliking them for that matter, and tell me why. I've gotten all sorts of comments. Don't worry, I can take the heat. I mean, people have told me that I should not spread my genes, that they're part of democratic societies, and that I should not spread my genes because I'm a fascist, that, all sorts of strange stuff, wishing me that I was dead and that people like me should have never been born. Yeah. Very mean things. Also, the most recent mean comment I've gotten was idiot. Yes. Because I was defending a statement from a politician that actually said something very common sense that other people seems to find offensive, but I don't find offensive at all. I find it very common sense what he said. And basically what he said was, on this side of the spectrum, you're Mohammedan. That's ISIS sympathizers. There's always in between in the scale. And ex-Muslims and people who are not Muslim or radical Muslims or whatever, they're human. They're human, like human. The true meaning of human, not that they're organic human being. Like these people are cyborgs or something like that. No, that's not what he's saying. He was saying that people here was more like Muhammad. They were following Muhammad's rules, and Muhammad was a warlord, pedophile, etc. That's what he's saying. People on this side of the spectrum of this ISIS, etc., and regular Muslims, they are in between in this scale, because Muslims are actually in this theological control, which America actually denounced and got rid of. And so they separated the church from the state, so they would not be controlled by these controlling dictatorial tyrannical religion systems as the Muslims are being controlled of. They don't want to be controlled by anything like that. And the Muslims sadly live and are being dictated by the Quran, and the things that says in the Quran are horrible, which I have explained in many videos. And for example, eating this pig meat right here would be a crime. I think it also says in the Bible and the Torah, or the Old Testament, which the Jews read, it's haram. But if you ask any normal Christian nowadays, who gives a shit? And I don't think you should change anything in the books. Period. What's in the books should be there. However, how you should interpret them maybe should differ. And that's the thing with Islam, is that they're supposed to believe in everything. And you have a Meccan version that's peaceful, and then you have the violent Medina version, which is not so peaceful. And like Milo said, the scholars, they say that whatever Muhammad said in the old days doesn't really count to what he said in his older days, because that's completely contradictory to what he says, that you should be peaceful and try to live with each other, and the next moment he's gonna say, kill all the infidels. Well, and that's obviously law then. And it has carried on, because that's the problem with conservatism. It's if you're gonna be so conservative that you're gonna refuse to move forward, that you're just gonna be stuck in these old ways. And I'm not saying that all old ways are something you should get out of. That's besides the point. That's just extremism. Extremism always are uncommon sense. What you need is common sense. You just need to keep balance. If you're gonna stick to one side too much, it's gonna be too much. Always keep balance. That's how I approach things when I gonna study them. It's like, anytime someone tries to be extreme, all right, families can be boring, right? So let's remove all families and make everyone individuals, and everyone should be bred by the state. That's very extremist, right? Maybe if someone would try to find some better alternative than that, right? Something in between from being with your family and being raised by the states, right? Like going to public school, that's a pretty good common sense idea. Also, that's a good way to spread propaganda, which they did in communism, etc., Nazism, etc., modern time, etc. But still, it's like far better alternative than you would remove every child from every family and put them into statehoods to be bred by the state. Rather than they would have a bit of a mix, right? Because not every family is actually a good family. I mean, of course, I support family values to 100%, but there's sometimes families that doesn't treat their children right. And these children are being so heavily indoctrinated by their parents that they can't see any other way. For example, in Islam, they would get taught to commit honor killings and murder their own family members. That's just insane. Just because, I want to make the free choice of having a Western friend. Oh, no, that you cannot have. You die. No comprende. That's just too extreme. So that's something you just really need to separate from, to give them a free flow of ideas, right? Because that's the thing that's good with the state, the government, that they could actually help with freedom this way. That they would rather force them to be in this little cult they have of a family, that they would actually come out and meet other people and, socialize with other people. Not socialism, that's not what I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to say that family are inherently evil. Yes, trying to be very clear here, that it's a good thing for people to get out of the house. That's all, really. But other than that, government, they can watch over basic rights. That's really all they should do. But the smaller the government, the more government are afraid of people, the better it is, rather than people being afraid of the government. And sadly, if you watch on pretty much the entire Western world, even America, but thankfully for Trump, that is being changed for the better. But if you do look in California state, it's a horrific mess, and that's in America. And they basically allow illegal immigrants to kill people, and then they're just going to be sent back to their home countries, right? And then they're going to be, since the home country doesn't want to keep them there. There was this guy, for example, that was quite highlighted not too long ago. He shot like a 14 or 13-year-old girl to death, and he was just sent back rather than being put into jail and being prosecuted for his crimes. No, he's just being sent back to Mexico or whatever, And of course, the Mexican government doesn't want to spend money on this guy, so they're just gonna be, yeah, go do whatever, we don't care. And he's gonna get back to America. And that's why they need a goddamn wall. And when the Mexican president said, I'm not gonna pay for that fucking wall, I loved Trump's response. The wall just got 10 feet higher. I mean, that's the sort of attitude you need. You don't need these political correct pricks that's just gonna be, oh, this guy, he's racist, we're not gonna listen to that. Oh no, we know there's so much problem with racism and etc. I don't actually know if I need this plate or not. I just thought it was a common sense thing to not get this stearine onto the table. I don't know what that word is in English. But it seems to be working out just fine. Anyways, now I completely got out of track here. But anyways, we need strong leaders. And same thing with Russia. Communism was technocratic control, and he managed to break out of it. Russia is a good model to, look up to and be like, oh yeah, perhaps we should break out of this too. And what I don't like about Russia, just like America, I think it would have been a lot better if you would cut these states and everything and make them into sovereign nations. I think that would be far more better for world stability, because with these giant federations, they're just going to control the world. It's like they're going to
I think the speech of the Prime Minister in Florence was important in setting the tone. The Prime Minister made clear that the UK will honour all its financial obligations. What we now need is to translate this promise into a concrete and firm commitment to actually settle all the financial obligations. And if we can do this within the next weeks, and Michel Barnier and David Davis and their teams are working on this, then I'm quite positive that we can actually see this sufficient progress being achieved.
This is the road that was sealed off yesterday. That's now been reopened. But we can see here in Chesterfield that the activity is focused on one particular address. It's a fish and chip shop just here on the main road. This is one of the main roads going into Chesterfield town centre. But as we get to the fish and chip shop, you can see there, again, the police have sealed off that particular place. I've been speaking to someone who works here who didn't want to be identified. They were saying that this place is owned by two Kurdish brothers and that one of them has been arrested. She described them as being very friendly. They'd attended family events with her and that kind of thing. And she was expressing her shock at what has been happening here.
Maybe I'm too influenced by my former career as a public official, but I always have a lot of sympathy for people who have to drive those types of negotiations under the glare, scrutiny, the microscope of commentators. So I'm not going to add my voice to theirs.
But there is perhaps some evidence that the messy negotiation process isn't working in the best interests of business people or indeed banks that are trying to work out what their future structure is going to be. Uncertainty doesn't really help anybody.
No, but we have very little control on that. So all we can do is plan, have contingency plans. We have a very robust process to follow all this. But we think we are not panicking. We think that the various scenarios we're looking at are manageable, and we have plans to manage whatever the outcome. But for the time being, we're being a bit cautious. We're waiting. We're entering a crucial phase, as you know, in December. So we'll have more clarity, I think, in January.
Special Agent Haley's position about this is that in the 8 cases that I went through in detail...
keep going with Special Agent Haley. Now,
well,
I've done explained to you...
You mentioned him too, so...
No.
It's not just me mentioning him.
You keep bringing up
You keep talking about him as well. Here's what I want to say to you. He believes in the 8 cases...
I wouldn't care what Dennis Haley believes. He don't believe it. He knows I didn't do it.
I understand that. I understand your position, but you keep mentioning him too, and I'm just saying, he believes that of the 13 confessions that you made, which would have made you one of the worst...
Push now in Europe and make a European federation. And that's going to be the end of Sweden as we know it, the end of Denmark, and etc., because they're going to try and force all the countries, even if they're not going to be in the European, like Norway and Greenland, etc. And I think Denmark is also not in the European Union. Maybe they re-entered. I think at least they left. But whatever. They're going to force these countries to join the economical union and, well, federation at this point. Switzerland as well, and Great Britain is going to be reinforced into this because they're trying to make everything a living hell for everyone that's supposed to be in the European Union that's not. And they're trying also to invite Turkey and Bosnia, you know, oh my god, Albania, Muslim countries, and have open borders with them. You know, if they do that, then it's farewell Europe. It's all over by that point, because then the Muslim caliphate will just encroach here, have lots of children, and like the Muslim says, the Imam leader, it's funny that people say, oh, he's not a real Muslim, but he's a Muslim damn Imam leader in Jerusalem, and he was there saying that we will send our children to theirs and have children with them, and when their children will have grown up, we will come and collect, and said that their children is our children. And they will take their armies to us and enforce this. So it's just insanity. And there's no such thing as Sharia law everywhere. That's not what every Muslim wants. Oh really? That's why Great Britain have over 13 Sharia courts, I think. Sharia courts. That's judicial systems for Muslims following Sharia law. How come you have 13 of those in Great Britain? How come you have Sharia law in Canada? Of course, there are major tweaks to these Sharia laws, but over time it incrementally increases with the Sharia law and the enforcements and these lawless zones, or no-go zones as the police calls them, because the police refuses to go to them even if there's going to be reported crime, because they do know that it's going to be violent, they get attacked, and I've shown footages of that in the past, and it's just horrific. And our politicians refuses to acknowledge them. Although it's funny that recently our Swedish Prime Minister acknowledged the horrific rapes that, for example, it was a woman in Malmö that was raped and they burned her vagina, and she was gang raped, and the gang rapes in Fittja where 20 people participated, or 5 participated in the actual raping, you know, having one was raping her anally and one had orally at the same time, and she was completely wrecked. But the other 15 was, you know, standing laughing, and when she went out, she was just collapsing, and she had sperm on her face, and people were walking past her, and it's just a Muslim zone. And that's a place I've been through many times, and I know that there's like no Swedish people there at all. And these people were like, you're disgusting, and spat on her and stuff like that. Completely sick. And that's no respect for the law either, because the law in Sweden, I think it's pretty clear that, in the common sense at least, even though it may not be law, that you should not intrude on evidence. And if they spat on her face and she had sperm on her face, obviously DNAs are gonna get mixed, and then all of a sudden it's gonna be like, oh yeah, I'll spat on that bitch. Of course he's gonna get prosecuted for that, but not rape. But it's the funny thing with all of this is that he actually acknowledges this, which he said was fake news and nothing like this ever happened. The image of Sweden, this utopian nation, right? The Sverigebilden, the Swedish image, as they like to call it. It was perfect, it was nothing wrong with it. It's all fake news, and the rapes are just broadened expression. That's why there are 6,800 rapes compared to the 70s, when there was just over 500 rapes. 500, maybe it was 570, I don't remember. But anyways, you hear the number. It just makes you weak in the knees when you hear these numbers. And he would just brush it off like, well, it's just fake news. It's a broadened expression. People don't know the truth. We do a lot to this. We help women all the time. We're a party for women, blah, 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 just like Hillary fucking Clinton. And it's just lies over and over and over again. And about that, about conservatism and things and cultures, countercultures, that's the thing. People tended to not like traditional things, right? Because, oh no, we have to do the same thing every year, and I don't want to do this. I want to do other stuff, right? Kids used to be bored. They used to rebel, and they used to be like, I don't want to go and do that. But now, people seem to, at least the younger generation, because my millennial generation group is just so brainwashed by socialism, it's crazy. But if you look to the younger generations, they seem to be a lot more common sensed and far more conservative in their line of thought. So it's very positive that this will carry on, and eventually the politicians will realize they will have to take a more conservative approach. But don't believe that just because people are going to change to conservatives that globalists want to manipulate this, because they have manipulated the Republican Party for ages in America, and well, of course, they're part of the establishment as well, and that's the trick, that the globalists, some people are just gonna say, well, that side is bad, and the other side is gonna say, well, that side is bad. But the truth is, the globalists have infiltrated both sides. They're trying to appeal for people on both sides, so that regardless which side would win, they would have their candidate in there and continue to dominate our cultures and our worlds. But that's the thing that didn't play out so well with Brexit. It's a vote they didn't even want to have at all. They wanted to, say, oh, this vote, it's ridiculous. It's not something that should be up here. It's undemocratic. The European Union is, our home. We all should be celebrating this multicultural thing. Yes, it's true. Europe is the most multicultural thing in the world. However, they're trying to break that down into making it a culture. And that's the socialist culture of the European Union, federation, or whatever you wish to call it. So they're trying to break down that. But still, whatever, if you look to history, you're gonna find so much diversity in Europe's that you're gonna not be able to find anywhere else in the world. And the tremendous success we've had thanks to our troubles and our developments. Of course, maybe I haven't studied as much on other places. Oh wait, yes, I have studied the Islamic world very, very much, and it's very monotone in its culture, actually. And Donald Trump, of course, he was an individual candidate that they didn't want to represent. At first, they wanted to humiliate him, like, oh, he's useless, he's never gonna win an election. Oh, turned out they flipped the wrong card. Because if Hillary Clinton would stand against a complete idiot, which they thought he was, then it would be easy for her to win the election, right? But yeah, she lost by a landslide. So that felt pretty good for people wanting freedom and the restoration of true Americana nationalism. But anyways, I kind of confused as well, because you know, you say nationalism is ethnic states, right? But America, oh yeah, they're colonized. They were mainly actually white. That's why they're so-called white nationalists or so-called white supremacists, but because they believe that America should be white because that's how America came to be. And it's true. I mean, yes, it's built on a nation of immigrants, but it's immigrants that came and killed off most of the natives and forced them into smaller nations and or reserves, as they call it, and then they took in more people from the Europeans, the white European nations, and took them in, and they built the country. So America was built by white people, and that's why the structure has been so predominantly white in the past. And after that, especially the last decades, America has been really enforcing this mass immigration of people from so-called minority countries, because in truth, white people are actually a minority in the world. So the wrong thing to say is that you take in minority groups, because we actually take in majority groups into our countries and make ourselves minorities eventually. And eventually you're not going to be able to see a single white face. And well, maybe you don't believe me today, but give it a few generations and you are only going to see people that's going to look like a mix from, you know, somewhere in between, with tanned skin, dark hair and brown eyes. That's the only face you're going to see on television. You're not going to see a single blonde person. You're not going to see any gingers. Even brown hair will be very rare. That would be like the next rare breed of white people. And of course dark haired, etc. White skin is just gonna disappear eventually. Perhaps not in the space ages, but whenever people are gonna start to traverse in space, etc., because then I think the skin will turn pale and the eyes will turn blue, if not having horrific problems with the eyesight. But I don't believe that, because you're gonna still have lights and stuff, so the eyes are gonna catch lights. But I think people will have trouble with eyesight because of the close chambers people are gonna be in. But we'll see, because it's evolution. The body adapts. It's pure fact. And I mean, everyone can learn any language. If you put the ethnic Chinese boy into Sweden,
qui est un symbole chrétien catholique. Aujourd'hui, c'est la croix qu'on veut enlever. Demain, ça peut être très bien nos églises qu'on veut démolir. Pourquoi toujours financer les mosquées? Pourquoi laisser les prières de rue de ces gens qui traînent dans la rue à faire leurs prières, tout ça? Et pourquoi eux, on ne leur dit rien, et nous, pour une croix qui est là aujourd'hui, c'est la croix aujourd'hui, maintenant, et demain, ça sera encore d'autres croix qu'on enlèvera, donc non.
Teach this boy proper Swedish, he's gonna learn proper Swedish. And if you put a Swedish boy into China and gonna teach him Chinese, he's gonna learn proper Chinese. It's a lot about the human soul, really, and the upbringing of the child, how you raise it. That's really how the child will develop. But when you're gonna mass in people like this, there's no way for assimilation. Plus, it completely wrecks the social construct that was there before and creates complete chaos. It's just divide and conquer, and that's how socialists gain voters, because their agendas are actually so out of tune with the original people live in there, the natives. So they just have to get different demographics into the country. And they do this by mass immigration. At first they come in and promise, lots of good things. And that's what they say about the Socialist Party here in Sweden as well. They did a lot of good things. But at the same time they pushed for mass immigration. And now we see the results of it. They're still pushing the same stupid things, and it's not working. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. And eventually, I hope at least eventually, people will just see through it and the party will collapse on itself. But according to the polls, which we know can be completely rigged and totally biased, because they do ask people when they make these polls. And I don't remember anyone asking me, and I'm, hardcore supporter of whatever against the establishment. And they're gonna keep ask people, oh, what you gonna vote, what you gonna vote, what you gonna vote, and then gonna be, oh, people vote socialist. Because maybe they go into schools and ask students and teachers, which are forced to believe in socialism. So, yeah, very misguided. But as well, they misguide people with their media, and who knows, maybe people are that brainwashed and would vote over 70% or something like that for Socialist Party. But remember, Hitler, when he won his elections, it was 98+%. It was insane numbers. But anyways, I think I'm nearing the end here. I've spoken about very good stuff, and this ham tastes very good. So, unfortunately, I missed to talk about Star Wars. I always wanted to talk about Star Wars, but since we're out of time, at least I can try to do something different here and then. Wait, I can do like this. Yes. Oh, I got some cool figurines here, right? Stormtrooper. Yeah. Troopers. I can't spin it anymore. It hurts my fingers. I'm gonna do it like this. Alright. So let's... Alright. Oh. Yeah. I just thought he was pretty cool. That's... Oh, alright. Well, someone better add some Star Wars music to that, because he kicked the ass out of 2 stormtroopers. Well, let's not care about the details now. And that's a pretty fun fact. I love Star Wars, even though it's multi-ethnic and blah blah blah, racial. It's not multi-ethnic, it's multi-racial. However, since Disney took over, like, every other character has to be a different ethnicity or whatever. It's like, one scene you're gonna have 3 people in an aircraft, right? And one of them is gonna be Asian, other white, the other black, or third black. This is gonna continue, and it's so political correct with the cast. Yes, look, in every damn movie, you're gonna have, for example, even in Rogue One, which I thought was great. I mean, if you look at the people's ethnicities there, I don't know where the big guy came from, but you have one Asian, you have the white chick that has the main role, you have the, I don't know, if he's some form of Spanish dude or whatever, he sounds to have some accent, maybe he's Eastern European, I don't know, and they're gonna continue this trend of, then in, of course, episode 7 and episode 8, they have lots of different colored people. Some people are gonna be like, yeah, whatever, they have a different color in the skin, whatever, but does it speak out some message to you that they're trying to normalize this, that everyone gonna think, oh, it's completely normal that every other person is gonna be some different ethnicity? But eventually, the true fact is that if everyone is gonna be a different ethnicity, right, and we're gonna force everyone to just mix breed across the entirety of the world, eventually there will be only one race. Because there will be no place where you can say in the world that here white slave, here black slave, here Chinese slave or whatever. Everyone is gonna be the same. It's just gonna be global everything. You're gonna be one human race. And that completely destroys culture. That destroys everything we have built for thousands of years. And that's one very important thing I really want to help defend as good as I can by giving you information and waking you up to this. Because they're trying to do this through schools, through movies, through commercials, everything. I mean, even at the Super Bowl, when people are supposed to be hypnotized by sports, that's, you know, people kicking a ball and having a good time eating sausages and stuff. No. Instead, they're gonna be indoctrinated with feminist agenda, racial agenda, etc. in these Super Bowl commercials. It's just insane. But that's what we are facing here. And it's a war for your mind. If you're gonna allow this to be normalized, then it will be normalized. But if you're gonna stand and resist and say, no, I don't want to get products from idiots like these that are gonna force these racial debates and issues all the time, because this is identity politics to 100%, and they want you to be like, all right, here's a picture of a dead child. It's because of the Syrian government and not the terrorists or anyone else invading Syria or the rebels. No, we have to declare war with Syria and kill al-Bashar Bashar and all others who disagrees with us because they killed this child. Is that really how we're supposed to conduct the rule of law in nations? Don't think so. Because actually what Trump did in Syria was a crime against international law, and I think America has gotten away with far too many of these heinous atrocities against the sovereignty of nations, since they have been really the core of globalists, the main center for them. And that's why lots of people don't like America, because America is interventionist. They come in and meddle into others' affairs and tell them how to live and what to feel, when they themselves are saying, oh, we represent freedom and liberty for all. Yet they are coming and dictating and being tyrants for others. Not gonna work. But I'm very glad that actually Trump recognized this and said that we're not gonna come into other people's nations and tell them how to live and what to feel. Like, it's their way of life and they should be able to do as they please. Do you agree? Of course. I think you have to spin it for him to make sounds. Pretty cool. Well, anyways, I think I've spoken enough. If I haven't, then I'll just add some other stuff for you to listen to. But in the meanwhile, like the liberals now hate, is Happy Mother's Day, Happy Father's Day. I'm a proud man, I'm proud to be a man, and I'm proud to know that I know some very great women. I'm sorry I assumed their genders, but that's what I'm gonna do. And it's okay to be white, and it's okay to say Merry Christmas. So a happy white Merry Christmas to you and a Happy New Year. And let's continue this war of information, knowledge spreading throughout the next year. And let's hope I'll find some more particular articles that will help us learn a lot more. I look forward to that, and that will be a challenge. And as well, finish my big videos because they do take too much time to make. But in the meanwhile, this is where I get off.